Some games feel like global events. It's like the moment they're announced, the internet loses its mind. They lose everything. Marvel's Wolverine is one of which games. And yes, so is GTA 6. And Silksong, man, at this point, it's basically mythology. But here's the weird part. What happens when a game that everyone else is obsessed with just doesn't hit you? Not because it looks bad, not because it won't be amazing, but simply because it just doesn't connect to your own tastes and interests. Now, before I even start this video, let me just offer a disclaimer, because I know a lot of y'all are going to start crying and complaining like some women. When I say that there is not really that much interest when it comes to games like Silksong, Wolverine, so what and so forth, that's not talking about the games aren't good or that they aren't overly anticipated. It's that it's not something that everybody's going to find an interest in, and that is something that is okay. This video is directed towards that small subsect of people who look at games that are very popular and getting a lot of mass appeal, and their reaction to it is like, Marvel's Wolverine is an upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive action-adventure game developed by Insomniac, the same studio behind Marvel's Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. The game officially launches on September 15th of this year. It stars Logan, better known as Wolverine, in an original story focused on uncovering the secrets of his violent and mysterious past. Public footage shows a much darker tone than Insomniac's Spider-Man games, with brutal claw combat, visible gore, rapid healing, and a far more mature atmosphere. Known locations teased so far include Canada, Tokyo, Japan, and Madripoor, suggesting a globe-spanning narrative. Characters and enemies publicly shown include Omega Red, Mystique, and giant Sentinel-like machines. So let's initially preface my commentary by saying that I'm not even someone who's an X-Men fan. I like Wolverine, he's cool. I'm more so a DC fan. I love Spider-Man though, I love Iron Man. But immediately you can already tell that this game has adopted a darker tone. It's a complete disconnect when it comes to games like Spider-Man, where there is nowhere near the amount of gore. I'm not even sure there's blood in that game, to be honest. I have to pay attention next time I play it, but you can automatically notice and assume this. You don't need years of comic knowledge to get Wolverine. You can see that this is a character who has a lot of pain, who has a lot of anguish and a lot of anger that he's dealing with, and that could be working in tandem with the fact that he doesn't even remember who he is, and he's trying to piece together his own life. So it's kind of like he's just lashing out at everything else around him. Even though he's the center of the story, he could also be serving as a sort of dual role where you're the protagonist, but you're kind of at war with yourself, which kind of has an antagonizing nature. It's kind of like a contradiction, so to speak. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what direction they take the story, especially since they have so many different locations that the game is being spanned across. He's the literal embodiment of rage, pain, violence, healing, and mystery, all wrapped into one character fantasy. Now that only begs the question, why does this game have so much hype? I think part of the excitement comes from the character himself. Wolverine is arguably Marvel's most iconic mutant and one of the most recognizable comic characters in gaming culture. The other half of the hype comes from trust in Insomniac, whose Spider-Man games established a reputation for cinematic storytelling, fluid combat, and emotional character work. They do a good job, I can't even lie. For many players, Wolverine feels like the perfect match between studio and hero, a violent character finally getting a game built around his brutality instead of toning it down to be more PG, so to speak. So this isn't just the kind of game that's like, oh, new game hype, like, oh, we're excited. No, this is hype, and people are so excited for this because they're actually creating the game around who that character is. It's a character fantasy hype. They're not toning it down. They're not watering down the experience just so it could be more feasible and do right more for more people. No, they're just being true to who the character of Wolverine is. People aren't just excited for content. They're excited to finally feel what it means to be Wolverine. So whereas Spider-Man gives players that movement fantasy, so to speak, Wolverine sort of gives players that aggression fantasy. And that shift alone can make the game seem like it's something brand new entirely, even though it is. But even though it's made from the same studio, it gives the game its own unique identity. Now on to the real topic, and that is that there are some games that just simply don't move some of us. It's very hyped, it's very well anticipated, but some of us are like, well, I don't really care. And again, this video is directed towards a certain demographic of people who empathize with what I'm saying. If it doesn't apply to you, shut up in the comments. So mass hype is often social before it's personal. People absorb excitement through online culture, trailers, reactions, memes, and community anticipation long before they know whether the game itself aligns with their own taste or whether they even like it. This creates a strange disconnect where a game can be objectively impressive, yet still emotionally irrelevant to someone's preferences, like me, for example. This is exactly how I feel with certain mega releases. And mind you, as I've said, I'm not an X-Men fan, so I don't follow the comics or anything like that. So I think it makes sense that I don't really have an interest, but I'm just speaking to a broader issue. GTA 6 is another example. It's obviously going to be huge. It's a cultural thing at this point. Wolverine looks incredible. Silksong fans have basically become a religion at this point. Those people are insane. But hype doesn't automatically create personal interest or personal attachment towards an IP or a brand. Sometimes a game just isn't just built for the specific emotional experiences that you chase in a game. Maybe it's more so intended for a broader range, and that's okay. So to add more detail, you take a game like GTA 6 and I think it represents a different kind of hype. It's sort of like this cultural inevitability, like something is just certain to happen. And that's how it is with GTA 6, especially since the wait between 5 and 6 has been so exponential that people are just overdue for a new installment in the series. And even people who do not play GTA or who even have an interest in that franchise, they can't help but even be exposed to all this excitement, all this anticipation because of the gaming community as a whole en masse. Everybody's waiting for the game. So I get why it's so popular, but also I understand that feeling of I don't really care. Now, Silksong, it's one of the clearest examples of how anticipation itself can become a shared gaming experience. Over time, the wait for the game, it seemed to like transform from just simple excitement into an entire online culture that was built on memes and fake predictions, reaction videos, showcase speculation, and collective disappointment whenever it failed to appear in a Nintendo Direct. For many players, the ritual of just hoping for Silksong news, it had become just as entertaining as the idea of eventually playing the game itself. Now, personally, I think Silksong is fascinating because the hype almost stopped being about the actual product a long time ago. And this is me talking about when the game was still being released, before it was released. But now it's kind of been about the experience of waiting together as time went on, and every showcase became a ritual. Every indie presentation turned into a detective mission looking for hints and clues of Silksong. I saw literal comments talking about no Silksong, no me. Every clown emoji on social media somehow became a part of the lore. And at that point, Silksong fans they weren't just excited, they were participating in a long-running internet inside joke that everyone understood and some people didn't understand at all. The wait for that game probably became one of the more culturally memorable ones than the actual game releases themselves. Now, quick disclaimer, I haven't even played Silksong yet because it's still sitting, my Switch 2 is still sitting on my desk by my IV flushes for nursing school. But I think what makes the game so interesting isn't just the game, it's how shared anticipation can create meaning before the art even arrives. The community has essentially, they built an emotional world around that absence of the title. The people, they weren't just bonding over gameplay, they bonded over the lack of gameplay, and somehow that made the game feel even bigger than what it was. For some players, the waiting becomes a part of the fun, but for other players, if they were never emotionally involved with it to begin with, all that hype can sort of just pass by like background noise. You can respect the hype and the anticipation and the phenomenon that's currently going on without personally feeling it or being a part of that. That doesn't make your taste wrong. It just means that your gaming language isn't the same as other people who find an interest in this title. Because sometimes the biggest releases in the world just won't emotionally land. And that's okay. Not everything will resonate with everybody. You don't need the hype to validate your taste. The games that matter the most are the ones that speak your language, not the ones that speaks the language the internet tells you need to adhere to. So whether Wolverine is your most anticipated game of 2026 or it's just a upcoming game that seems pretty cool and you just keep your distance, each maneuver, each one of those two avenues is okay to have that mindset, whichever one you fall under. And honestly, understanding that might just be as important as understanding the game itself. I'm Harlem. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.